Welcome to part 2 of this video of how I fixed the handling of my Porsche Cayman with the help from Centre Gravity. We've just done the road test, the car's coming back in now, they're going to read out the existing geometry, do a parts inspection, have a chat with me, and then they're going to get busy. Hope you enjoy this video, like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. Enjoying life and cars to the max.
So front left, it measures the axle weight, which is 624 kilograms on the front axle, and then knowing that weight, it gives it a calibrated thump, and if the damper is healthy, it will lay the pad back down, where a faulty damper, and you would see the wheel going in and out of the wheel arch. And if you pan up to the graph on the screen, you'll see that it gives us quite a linear trace. And what we're looking for initially is that the front left and the front right are doing the same thing. We would expect the traces to be the same shape. And in a moment it will give us a score. And I want that score to be 0.3 on both sides, with a 0% difference in the middle. That's what we're looking for. And there you go, so perfect. So ignore the internal blue, it's the silhouette that we're interested in. And I want to be able to take that silhouette and put it on top of that silhouette and for them to be exactly the same. It gives it as a MOT style score. So green would be pass, yellow would be an advisory, and red would be a fail. And both of your front dampers have exceeded the score for passing the test, which is normal for a sports car.
Okay.
So same again, this time on the rear.
If they're coming off, ideal opportunity to save the alpha on this.
So 750 kilos on the rear axle. And again, healthy damper, you can see that the body and the wheel move at about the same rate.
I've already marked it. Oh, you marked it already.
We're looking for them to both achieve greater than 0.3 with 0% difference, and we want the silhouettes to be the same shape.
How much fuel have you got in, Steve?
There you go. So all the dampers, 55,000 miles into their life, are performing perfectly. Just over half a tank, so we need to put just under half a tank's worth of ballast in the car. Which looks a little bit like that.
So this is an actual official Porsche recommendation about having weight in front of the car?
It is in the workshop manual that the car should be measured for any wheel alignment with a full tank of fuel.
Wow.
Along with a list of other requirements and conditions.
There you go.
And you've got tyre pressures, tread depths across, because anything that can affect the car's pitch or roll will affect the geometry. So if we don't have a flat ramp, we see the car like this, there's a 1 mil difference, the car will lean and the cambers change.
Yeah.
We want a flat, reproducible, flat surface, so that when we measure the car, we take the car off and put it back on, and we can recreate those conditions and take out all of the variables.
Yeah, fantastic. You've seen one of my wheel alignment videos before. I went down to wheels in motion, so in this particular video I'm not going to focus too much on the geometry setup. I'll just let you know the results at the end of the video. So that's my car getting checked up back there. It was really great to actually go out on a test drive with someone that knows how the car should handle. We did that earlier on. He picked up basically how the steering is not kind of as it should be, which is kind of what I was suspecting. Right now he actually believes the main issue is incorrect geometry, which is amazing because I took it to Wheels in Motion 3 years ago and they were a geometry specialist. It's then been to Porsche twice at Porsche Brooklands, It had a geometry alignment only last week when the anti-roll bars were fitted front and back, and it just goes to show that the Hunter Hawkeye, the geometry machine, it's just a machine. It's how you interpret that data as well. They did basically say how a car can actually read perfectly fine on the Hunter Hawkeye, yet can still have sort of steering traits, and this will be down to wear and tear in the kind of components. So you saw the roads he kind of went over. It looks like mechanically the car seems okay for now. He's basically measuring the existing alignment right now, and then we're going to take it from there. These guys are really transparent. I'm really impressed with that, because prior to coming here I kind of prepared for the worst. So we basically had the costings for inner outer track rod ends, control arms and so on, and I was just expecting that they would say, right, we're going to go ahead and do that. But no, the way it works here is there is a list of all the things that need to be done, and they start with the most kind of like important. So they said, for example, if your geometry is way out, that's the most important thing that needs to be corrected. They kind of have your best bang for your buck approach. So basically they're looking to find the biggest faults with the car that will affect the handling, and then we're going to take it from there. They haven't actually done the mechanical inspection with regards to the control arms and the in and outer track rod ends. They're going to get the geometry done, and maybe he'll even pop out for another drive after that to see how it handles. But the main thing is that he picked up straight away the thing that I was just not kind of happy with, and that was basically the kind of bit of a play in the front wheel and that kind of indecisiveness. And they do think that's all down to he's guessing it's down to geometry. So I'll see what happens as this day goes on, but it's really great. These guys are really passionate about what they do, and it's great when you find kind of people that are really passionate. No disrespect to any other garages, but I think wheel alignment, how a car handles, it's more than just the kind of a 45-minute four-wheel alignment, which is what you get in kind of most garages. I'm here for the whole day, so I don't know how long it's going to take, because if they need to swap out parts, they're going to swap out parts. I'll let you know how it goes, but I'm really glad to, for people that can't afford a brand new factory Porsche, it's great that these companies exist that help you with a used car get that new car feeling, and that's what I'm about here with my 987. I'm not going to be buying a new car. I'm going to be holding the car for quite a while now, so this is why I want to make sure it's perfect. The geometry is being checked. I'll let you know how it goes. Enjoying life and cars to the max. See ya. Okay, so the car has just had the geometry read. This is basically how I brought the car in. The results are in, so let's look at that thrust angle. Right, what have we got? Oh my god!
So this is what the car looks like currently, with the steering wheel straight. Now it might be interesting for you to just get a quick glimpse of what we've done with the steering wheel.
The thrust angles really put me off there.
If you just have a health and safety and all that, if you just have a climb up there,
sure.
Just get a quick shot of the steering wheel, rather than leave it down to what looks level.
Oh wow, what the hell?
We put a spirit level
Wow, that's impressive.
in the steering wheel, so level is level.
That is impressive.
So if we go back to the screen, what I'm interested in at this stage, and what you're interested in, is whether what this looks like agrees with what we found on the initial calibration.
And that's why I'm totally thrown off.
Shouldn't be, because everything makes sense there.
I thought the thrust angle seemed a bit. Oh well, it wasn't a thrust angle, is what you're saying.
No, it is, but it is. That's enough for us to notice a difference. So the argument is, this should agree with what we found on the drive. Now I've made notes of everything that we found on our test drive.
Okay.
So to start off with, we had inconsistent slip. Predominantly she wanted to go left, and that's down to your front tracking or your front toes.
Okay.
The steering wheel dead straight with the spirit level in. You've got 11 minutes of toe out and 4 minutes of toe in. So predominantly she wants to go to the left. However, what we're interested in is the sum of that plus that. And what you've got is still toe out, 7 minutes of toe out. The specification for the car is 6 minutes of toe in. And it's the toe out, as we mentioned on the drive, which is the contributing factor to the inconsistency, the tram lining, the vagueness and the understeer. So that all makes sense. We then did the roundabout test, and she was pretty good, wasn't she?
Yeah.
A little bit of understeer. The rear geometry isn't too bad, the front canvas isn't too bad, but the understeer came from, again, the toe out. back over the A5, onto the dual carriageway, and very quickly she went left. Now if we ignore where the steering wheel is, because as you drive forward the steering wheel just naturally creeps to the right, and those equal themselves out at 3.5 minutes of tow out each. The reason that she goes left quicker than she goes right is down to this difference here. So 27 versus 22, and you'll probably say, well, that's not very much.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like
5 minutes. However, we proved the theory that it is enough.
Yeah.
Because on the dual carriageway, the steering wheel straight, it was 2 seconds count to go left and 7 seconds count to go right. So it is enough to make a difference. Then we did the acceleration test where we held her straight, we stopped her moving, we dropped it a couple of cogs and we gunned it. And even from the passenger seat, you could feel the fact that the car wanted to pull to the right hand side. And again, you've been thrown by this because it's only 0.01, it's 1 minute. But what we're interested in is the difference. So you've only got 2 minutes difference in the toes. If I over exaggerate it, it would look like that, but it's not a lot. But you've also got 11 minutes difference in the cambers. So you've got two forces acting on this wheel which push the back of the car. If we take both of those forces, plus 750 kilos, plus sticky tyres, and we give most of its force to this wheel, it will always push the car that way, which then pushes the front of the car that way. And again, like I say, the argument is that it doesn't look very much. However, the calibration drive proved that it is enough, because you can feel that. When we're finished, we want no more than 2 minutes difference here. Then onto the straight bit of A5, and we were constantly having to fidget. And you referred to it as there being a bit of a dead spot where not a great deal happens around the dead ahead, and that is a factor of tow out, because your front wheels are always trying to find the next chance to change direction, and that sensation is down to tow out. Turned off and onto the B road, straight bit of B road. No, she wasn't bad at all on the B road, but as soon as we got up to sort of 55-60 miles an hour, the car just started to give us a bit of a kick in the back. Now there's two reasons for that. One is down to the difference in your rear cambers. Again, it's not a lot, but every time this wheel hits a bump, it's pushing the back of the car that way. But I've also just noticed, and I've made a note of, your rear anti-roll bar, the H&R roll bar, which is a big thick girder of a thing, has been set to full stiff. Now full stiff is great for going around smooth racetracks.
So it's supposed to be set in the middle.
But going around bumpy B roads, it's tying the rear right wheel to the rear left wheel. So everything that wheel hits, it gives it to that one as well. So we'll be softening that off today whilst we're here. And then obviously back up the A5, through the town, and then we're into noises and things. But what I'm interested in is, does that agree with all of my notes? And yes, it does.
Wow. I'm glad you can read that, because I mean, I get drawn to the colours more than anything else.
Correct, and the colours dictate whether it suits Porsche. So green would mean that Porsche would be happy with it, and it's within spec. Red is outside of that range. However, if we go to this one here, you'll see that the allowable range is actually rather large. So, you know, the rear right camber could be 135 and it would still be green. The rear left could be 105, it would still be green, and Porsche would be happy with it, but it is a big difference.
It's the thrust angle that threw me. I was expecting it to be way out.
Well, it agrees with what we've found.
So in terms of things like the mechanical side of things, like
I'm going to look at that now.
Is that what? Okay, fine.
So
before
that's
you.
The next bit. So what I didn't want to do was take the car off its feet, because if you have got wear in any components and we take the car off its feet, we might not be able to get it back to this. So this at the minute is how we've driven the car. I'm going to take her off her feet now, do the inspection, see if we've got any play in anything, make sure everything is tight. The rationale for measuring this now is purely to agree with what I've already found is wrong with it. If we'd have driven it and found all of these things that aren't normal, so it's quite a long list of things that don't fit the bill, if this measured as being perfect, then we would look deeper. But at this stage, that agrees with everything that we found, and it also agrees with your comments when you arrived about you weren't fond of how the steering felt.
Wow.
There may be mechanical issues as well, but there's certainly a lot to go out there.
Well, it's interesting you said it, because I think it all started when my front coolant hoses were replaced, and that's when they dropped the front subframe.
Yeah.
I think the car's never been right after that.
Well, they've done a lovely job of refitting your front subframe. I know there's not a huge difference in your cambers, but the cambers can be adjusted, you see, on the top struts. Normally, the acid test for getting the subframe back on level is these caster values here, because caster isn't adjustable on your car. And the fact that they are near perfect is a really good indication that whoever put your subframe back on after the coolant pipe work or after the wheel work, just put it back on exactly where it needs to be. So whatever this wheel hits, it gives a bit of it to that one. And for a car that's going to spend a lot of time on bumpy British B roads, which aren't perfect, we don't really want whatever this wheel hits to be given to that wheel. We want them to be independent. Rear track control arm, inner bushes, which I think you'd already been mentioned about. If you can, I don't know whether you can get your camera up there. If you come around this side and look in there, you see how the bush has actually completely come away from the arm. So this rubber bush should be bonded to the aluminium arm. And it's completely come away on that side. It's just starting to come away on the other side. You can see that. And if you flip around and have a look at its mate,
it's just as bad.
That one's just as bad. Now that will contribute to why the car feels a bit lateral and a bit unnerving on the B roads. If this arm can't keep this wheel secure.
Gotcha.
And we always say track control arm bushes, as soon as they get to sort of 50% worn, they need to be changed.
And it's the whole arm that is replaced, isn't it?
It's more cost effective to change the whole arm.
Okay.
You can change the bush, so for some people you can change the bush. However, to get that bush out, you still have to remove the arm from the car. Then you've got additional labour to press that bush out and put a new one in. And for how cost effective it is to buy a complete new arm, for most garages anyway.
You said the ball joints could fail as well. So
ball joints can fail. So if you put a brand new bush in a 55,000 mile old arm, and then the ball joint fails in a month's time, you would then have to replace the arm because the ball joints aren't serviceable.
Gotcha.
Good. So, and again, you referred to control arms earlier. This is a control arm, but is more commonly known as a coffin arm. This is a control arm, but more commonly known as the tow control arm. And then you've got this control arm here, which is a very long arm on the Boxsters and the Caymans, which is referred to as the diagonal control arm, or the radius arm, or the tuning fork, because it's a tuning fork at this end and a ball joint at that end.
Do all those arms have bushes in?
The coffin arm and the tow arm have bushes inboard and a compliance bush in the middle, ball joints outer. The radius arm has nothing at this end, it just bites the coffin arm, and then there's a ball joint hiding up there underneath underneath your bum. And it's these ball joints which we're listening for when we do the cobbled test on the calibration drive, and they're the ones that give us that snooker balls rattle. However, yours were lovely and quiet. Good. So I'll make a note of your coffin arms. When we get the car in the air, I'll do an assessment of how worn they are. The likelihood is that we'll probably need to change those.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. Same on the front. Now we'll probably get the under tray off in a bit, but you can just about see the subframe there.
I'll wait for you to take it off then.
And you can see witness marks of where it used to live versus where it lives now. So it hasn't gone back where they found it. However, we've proven with the geometry that where they've put it back is actually the right place, and where it was before was potentially wrong.
I have to admit, when you see what is wrong with your car and it's pointed out, you don't mind spending the money to get those parts replaced. I can clearly see items that needed replacing there. So is this where the wheels come off? Is that why you've lifted up the car?
So in a bit, possibly, depending on what we find. Obviously, if there's nothing wrong with the car and we find nothing on the inspection, then the wheels don't need to come off.
Okay.
But at this stage, we've done a visual inspection with the car and its feet, and I've checked certain components like roll bar bushes and anti-roll bar drop links. I've done a visual on the coffin arms, but I now need the car off its feet with the weight off it so that I can check ball joints,
Gotcha.
wheel bearings, top mounts, bump stops, make sure
Excellent.
that your springs are still intact. It's quite a common issue for Caymans to have broken springs.
Yeah, I heard they can crack after a while.
Yours are still intact, so I can check all the way around the base of the spring. You've got a bump stop here, which is an additional spring. These perish, yours are perfect. Dampers, we've already checked, are healthy, we've proven that, and they can and do leak. Yours are bone dry. And then obviously we can get a look at your top mount as well. Now I gave them a visual inspection when we had the lid open and we put the fuel ballast in, and from above they looked okay. From underneath, this one looks okay. But we're going to get a socket on the top and just check that they're in good health.
Excellent.
And then things like wheel bearings and ball joints. Now, on the drive, we commented in the commentary about the dead spot in the steering, which can be down to wear in the track rod ball joints.
Yeah.
And at this wheel, giving it the usual kind of MOT style check, there is absolutely no play in those balls.
Oh, really?
So they are absolutely rock solid. There's nothing there at all. So the dead spot and the vagueness isn't being caused by any mechanical issues at this wheel. Obviously I've got the other one to check, and I'm still holding my chin out that it's going to be down to alignment.
Wow. So this actually checks the inner and outer track rod ends?
Inner and outer track rod ends. The inner, if you come
Yeah,
from
sure.
the inside, you've got this. Let me get
Might be a
a
light,
torch on for you. So you've got your steering rack in there. Nice new coolant pipes which have been replaced. Nice new shiny roll bar which has been replaced. And inside this black boot here is your inner track rod end. You can just see the end of it.
I think it's getting your phone instead.
Poke in there.
There you go. Okay, that's cool. I got it. Yeah.
So you can see the accordion type
Yeah.
gaiter. So inside this gaiter is your inner ball joint, and then if you follow it to the end of the wheel, which you'll probably struggle to get on camera, but it's the other end of this arm, at the wheel carrier end, you've got your outer ball joint.
Okay.
And the checks that we've done have proven that there's no play in those ball joints, and if I rotate it by hand, it rotates smooth and clean, where when these ball joints fail, occasionally you can't move them at all and they'll seize, or they're very, very loose and you can rattle them by hand, or more often and more commonly they go arthritic, so they go notchy. And of course, if they're notchy at this point here or this point here, that just gets translated up the steering column to the steering wheel, and the driver feels that. But this side is absolutely lovely.
Wow. Wow. There we go.
We checked for spring integrity. They're all in good health. Bump stop is still intact. Damper on this side is dry. And again, the top mount looks in really good health. We will check them from above, but they look good.
There you go, there's that torch that you put down.
Yeah, I knew it was on the sink, yeah. I knew it was there.
Yeah.
So.
What do I want now? Why do I want it?
I don't know, Chris.
Cheese tape. Tease me. On this case, you've got a consumable of the steering rack, which is the inner ball joint. call it a drumstick, and it takes a lot of load. It's got to do a lot of up and down and push and pull, and typically we'll find that we're changing maybe 3 of those inners to 1 outer.
Oh right, okay.
Or maybe 4, and it's typical that on the UK it's this wheel and it's this wheel station that needs changing more often than the one on the right.
Gotcha.
So if you've got a French car in France, it'll be the other way around.
Yep.
Oh sorry, German car in Germany.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Look at that.
And what I've just done there, Max, is whilst he's doing it's a high acceleration rocking test, we're trying to determine whether it's a wheel bearing or any one of the, how many ball joints have you got the front axle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 ball joints on that wheel station.
Wow.
2 of them from the drop link, and then the other ones are control arms.
Yeah, wow.
Another little issue,
Okay.
these geometry adjusters.
Yeah.
This is your toe adjuster here,
Oh, yeah.
eccentric
Yeah.
bolt. You've got another one up there which you probably can't see on the camera. These eccentric bolts obviously control the toe of the rear wheel and the camber of the rear wheel. And these are a stretch bolt, so they can only be used 4 times, and
Oh.
after the 4th time they must be replaced.
Oh really?
Because you can tighten the nut up as tight as you wish. They should be 100 Newton meters, but as tight as you wish, and it won't hold the part. I haven't been in and undone any of these, and I know that the car has had alignment recently, so I thought I'd just go and check them, and just with a normal sized spanner and my little arms, I can move them.
Yeah.
Well, if I can move them with a spanner,
The road can move that as well.
imagine what a sticky Pilot Sport 4S can do going round and round.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. So literally four times to use it.
4
And that's it.
geometries, kill them, they must be
Wow,
replaced.
that's amazing.
So there's nothing wrong with this component, and visually there's nothing wrong with the bolt, but these bolts must be replaced before we carry out the alignment.
Wow. I've never heard anyone mention that to me before.
And that one is the same. I will check the cambers as well, but I need to get a different tool for that. So another thing to add to our little
There you
list
go,
for
yeah.
today.
So we've just figured out the top mount's all looking good, eh?
Yeah, so very simple test. It's a non-PASM car. On a PASM car, obviously you have a cable coming out here, so we can't use this particular socket, but we do have a socket that we can use that allows the PASM cable to come through it. Socket on top of the nut, and just with a very small amount of force, because we don't want to undo the nut and we don't want to turn the damper rod, just a little bit of force, and you can see that we can put effort in, and because the top mount is healthy, it doesn't go anywhere and it springs back, and the same the other way. So those top mounts are still good as new, nice and tight.
Fantastic.
And this is also the means of adjusting the camber.
I was going to say, well, you need to come up there.
We'll be coming up there later on, yeah.
Awesome. Right, sorry about this bit of a sound fail. The microphone wasn't turned on for this bit of a video commentary. So essentially what you've got over here, these are the new parts that are going to be fitted to my car. I've got TRW inner and outer track rod ends. That's at the front of the car. I've then got male track control arms, that's at the rear of the car, and then I've got these kind of eccentric bolts that go at the back of the car with some nuts and some consumables. So this is just basically an overview of the parts. One thing about the TRW inner and outer rod ends, they're official genuine Porsche parts. The only difference being compared to the official Porsche parts is they've got to grind off the actual Porsche part number, which is kind of indicated by this kind of a marking here. So that's for legal reasons. It can't obviously be sold as an official Porsche part, even though it's exactly the same. This is the eccentric nut that can only be tightened up 4 times, and on my car was too loose to basically hold in the adjustment. What you can see here is that the threads actually can stretch as it's tightened, so if you overuse this and tighten it more than 4 times, it's incapable of basically holding tension. So this is why this bolt had to be replaced. And over here we've got the rear track control arm, often called a coffin arm. As you can see by the shape of this, it does resemble a coffin.
So both of the inners are dated the 10th of February 2009, and both of the outers have got a date stamp of 2008.
There you go.
So they're the original parts that have been on the car since it was new.
So in terms of the rubber components on them, I mean, I know...
no rubber components in these. So it's a ball joint in there.
Okay.
That's just metal on metal ball joint, and underneath this boot is a ball joint as well. So the boot on this end just protects it from the elements.
Okay.
Where if you remember, this is behind that accordion gaiter.
And to clarify for the people, only one of them really needed replacing, but seeing as you're doing the labour to replace the parts, I thought I'd do them all.
Do them all. So there you go, they'll go in our ever-growing pile of scrap Porsche parts.
Wow, oh, it's great to see the dates on them. They always manufacture all the dates on them.
Yeah, anything on any Porsche has always got a date time stamp on it.
Fantastic.
Even down to the plastics.
Oh wow. Awesome. Oh, thank you very much.
There you go.
So this is the full list of parts that I needed replacing, £385. Don't forget we got 20% VAT or sales tax, which we add on top of this, and then there's a labour for all the work that was done. Over here you can see the before geometry, and the biggest things that kind of pointed out to me is the front toes were pretty much way out, and the rear cambers, doesn't look like a lot, but the rear cambers really upset the balance of the car. So once this was all corrected, look at that front toe, look at the cambers, and in particular look at the front camber. You can see that there's green, which is kind of like accepted by Porsche, but I've got this right on the edge, and this is how the car is designed to be set up for my best handling. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was part 2. Part 3 is to follow, where I take the car out on the road and test it to see if it's made a difference. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Enjoying life and cars to the max. See ya.